Ellar Coltrane, the boy in the hood, all grown up.
So Ellar, so people must be asking you this all the time, but I think everybody is curious, like, what was it like?
I don't know. I had nothing to expect, so I don't know. But it was very emotional. I don't know. It was just kind of catharsis, really. I have always been wondering, I think everyone wonders how you change from day to day, much less over, a period of a decade or more than a decade. And it's really hard to capture that. You can look at pictures or whatever and see, this is how I looked at this age, this is how I looked at this age, but there's something about it, moving and talking, and to, have that kind of put in my face, it was intense.
Okay, so I've read that you didn't have a script for the whole thing when you began the process, but you had an outline. Can I ask, how much did you know? Did you know the haircut? Did you know both marriages? Yeah. Did you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I knew the last shot of the movie. Yeah, it was pretty detailed. I knew the trajectory of really the adults a little more than the kids, because that's kind of the point of view of the movie. You're getting dragged. When you're a kid, you just kind of go where your parents take you. It sounds lame, when Patricia tells the story hey, it sounds great, I'll do the movie. Do you have a script? No. And people laugh. But it's that wasn't the point. It was a process-oriented thing. It's we'll have a script. That's not the hard part, though. It's about the ideas, and the ideas were there, so it was every year kind of perfecting the script for that year. But it would have been a waste of time to write the last scene when he says goodbye to her. What would be the point of writing that 12 years early?
I mean, you say you knew the last shot, you knew he would be sitting there with the girlfriend and, or not the girlfriend, with the new girl. Yeah.
Post-heartbreak or whatever, yeah. It kind of mirrored the first shot of the movie when he's alone in the grass. I just thought that would be a nice little bookend in some way.
And then
I believe in knowing the endings before you start.
So I want to talk about the way the plot works in the film. And I'm so aware in the film of how many moments you are totally underplaying the plot, where things come up and there'll be, and obviously there's some super dramatic scenes about an hour into the film with the dad who drinks and they have to escape, but that's pretty much it, and then things are pretty low key. In fact, there are setups that could lead. Somebody watching was there's setups that could lead to drama that you noticeably sidestep. Mason gets the haircut and he goes to school and he's so scared of how it's going to go, and then a girl passes a note and she really likes it. Cool. I think she's cool. Or the kids go to KEWL, and I've read that you said I didn't need a lot of plot, and just what was your thinking about how much plot and also so underplaying the plot, even when they're playing at the construction site, you just think somebody's going to die.
I know. I know. I was completely, the first time watching it with an audience, I think we were, it never crossed our mind.
We didn't think of it that way, but everyone's just
to feel 1,200 people just flinch okay, here it comes. The
because you expect it. Because you expect
it. You're pretty far into the movie. You think by that point we know it's not going to be that kind of movie, maybe, but we're so conditioned.
So he's going to lose a finger.
Yeah, just give us a digit or something. Give us a little blood, But I was at that camp out, and, miraculously, we all survived our childhood.
So your theory about the plot, because you're making a movie, what was your theory about, here's how it's going to work as a story?
And I was really just trying to mirror my own experience and how life mostly unfolds. There's a little drama, but for the most part, it kind of hums along on some. So I guess I don't really trust movie plots to a large degree. Once you set up a machination of, a plot, you have to kind of adhere to it and feed it. And that can be very satisfying to watch, when it's done well. But then you're making choices.
For example, that Mason is going to have this girlfriend, right? Mm-hmm. But you don't show us the first kiss. In fact, the scenes are the scenes are it's such a particular way to tell the story. Do you know what I mean? You see.
That's a good question, because it's in my own memory, it was the first kisses and all the firsts and the graduations, those are often kind of so loaded with either expectation or normalcy. You've seen them represented so much. Even as you're having the experience, you're oh, okay, this is my high school graduation, I'm supposed to feel. And it's boring. Oh, right. Often it's it goes down in your life, in your own memory, as kind of a non-event. You're almost an extra in your own experience. That's how I felt about a lot of these big moments.
Right.
It's so loaded. Like a lot of people feel that pressure, I think, on their honeymoons, and like, oh, this is supposed to be. Is it that good? Maybe we're, you're just so conscious of it. So I was kind of obsessed with how the memory works, and it's these little moments. So this movie's all a collection of all these little moments that, for some reason, are hanging around in your memory. That kind of from a Hollywood story editor's perspective shouldn't be there.
As a viewer, I feel like I was constantly trying to catch up. I was always like, wait a second, if we, oh wait, are they older? I feel like you really have to look for a second to understand, wait, oh, that just happened.
Yeah, people said, did you ever want to put a year or a grade or some kind of device? I said, no, not at all. Because even in your own mind, the way you recall your own life, it's blurry. You don't go, okay, that was 98. And that was, it's like, oh, that was third grade. What year? Well, was that before the new year or after? Was that spring? It's all a little blurry. So I wanted you to just feel the time passing by your own observations. And, whether you notice a haircut or, one of the kids has grown up more or something changes. So it just kind of, again, to flow how you perceive your own time.
So the parents in the film and the adults in the film, this is one thing I'm wondering about, seem like they were way less cool and way less sensitive than the adults in your real life. But I'm wondering if that's really true, if that was your experience of it.
Yeah. I mean, no one ever threw any dishes at me. So
the parenting represented in the movie really is more like, my childhood, which was there was much more of a generation gap. There just kind of weren't cool parents back then.
One of my favorite moments in the film is where Ethan Hawke is saying to the kids, like, I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to be that dad. We're really going to relate now.
All right. No. No, that is not how we are going to talk to one another, all right? No, I will not be that guy. You cannot put me in that category, all right? The biological father I spend every other week with and I make polite conversation, while he drives me places and buys me shit. No. Talk to me.
So, so much of it. And then, of course, the parents, stepfathers and stuff. I had a couple stepfathers along the way.
You did?
Yeah. Then they're sort of represented in the movie. but from the kid's point of view, people like, were they that? I kind of instinctually stick up for the two guys in the movie in some way, because people, oh, they're so awful. I go, from the kid's point of view, they certainly are. But I've heard people ask Patricia, like, oh, you have horrible taste in men. Or like, what's up with that? And it's like, well, that's the kid's point of view. When suddenly you have a stepfather in your house ordering you around, it's like, hey, you haven't earned the right to be bossing me around. I don't even hardly know you yet. You're not my dad.
This is my house. If you want to live in my house, then you get home when you say you're going to be home.
Jim, you're not my dad.
No, I'm not your dad. You know how I know that? Because I'm actually here.
That's what, it's called Boyhood, but it could have been called Parenthood or any number of other things.
And are there speeches in the film that are there because you remember somebody saying them to you as a kid?
Well, that was one of my metaphors for the movie. I kind of, when I thought of it, I felt the movie, but one of the things I felt, and it was just my own childhood, it was like everybody kind of in your face from above you. Like that's how it felt to be a kid. To the end of the movie, people are giving you advice, and you think, oh, that's kind of the world's job when you're developing, everyone's throwing stuff at you, and it's funny what resonates and what doesn't. The darkroom scene where the teacher pulls you aside, everyone says, I had that talk.
I've met a lot of talented people over the years. How many of them made it professionally without discipline, commitment, and a really good work ethic?
Ellar, when it came to all the advice that all the adults are giving Mason in the film, like you were a kid when they were saying this stuff to you, like, did it strike you in the scenes how pathetic the adults were? or were you not old enough to have that thought yet? And do you even remember this?
Yeah, I was a pretty judgmental child.
Were you, or no?
No, I'm being, no, absolutely. If there's one thing my parents taught me, it's to trust nothing that any adult tells me, which kind of backfired on them at a certain point. But
and then what's your process for working with actors? Like how much ad-libbing happens, and especially when the actors are kids, the early kid scenes are so real. Like there's the fight that you get into with your movie sister, which starts with her singing the Britney Spears song, and you're in the bunk bed, and then it's sort of like she's faking, and it's just like that. It's just like it's almost like documentary footage.
Oh baby, baby, whoops! You think I'm in love? But to lose all my senses.
What the hell is going on in here? Do you guys know what time it is?
How do you do that?
A lot of rehearsal, actually. Just a lot of work. I think it'd be called workshop rehearsal. Like there's a script, and then we're just trying to make it work. And a lot of, for me, and this goes for how I've always just instinctually worked with actors, is just not being so precious about the writing, but just trying to make the scene work in a way that's believable, which to me often means kind of rewriting it subtly via the actor, like, why is that not working? It sounds weird. Let's, just your writing process continues, but you're now including the people who are going to represent
Because
the
how long
character
would you guys
and the
rehearse?
words.
Like, how would it work? Because you're shooting for 3 days or a week each year?
Often it was kind of an intense 3-day shoot preceded by several days of rehearsal, and in our case, maybe a few weeks or months of building up to it, talking about it, and usually a year.
with the
Like
kids.
the year before, I would say, okay, next year we got the camping trip, and you're going to meet a girl, or whatever, and we would start. We had a year to gestate next year's what was planned for the next year, and so we would talk. I'd maybe give Ellar an assignment and be like, hey, every girl you meet this year, you end up in a conversation. Just write it down, talk about it. So he would contribute enormously, in the writing.
And so, Ellar, so there are probably lines and moments in the film that you remember, like, that's mine, right? Like, what are some of them?
Definitely. I mean, that first conversation with Sheena was, that's probably the most embarrassing part of the movie. I mean, I just want to be able to do anything I want because it makes me feel alive, as opposed to giving me the appearance of normality.
Whatever that means.
So that's very much, that's a rant that I went on many times.
Yeah, but that made it true. It's better than, some middle-aged guy writing what he thinks a teenager, would get closer to, for that.
But so there's a speech that the mom says towards the end, where the speech where she says, like, "Oh, I just thought there would be more."
You know what I'm realizing? My life is just gonna go like that. This series of milestones. Getting married, having kids, getting divorced. The time that we thought you were dyslexic. You know what's next? Huh? It's my fucking funeral!
Aren't you jumping ahead by like 40 years or something?
I just thought there would be more.
When I first saw the film, I was just feeling like, oh my God, like this is totally somebody trying to sort of name the thing that we've just experienced in addition to what they're experiencing. I felt so appreciative. And I'm wondering, is that something that you knew at the beginning, or is that one of the things you only figured out as you were making the film?
Both. Like everything in this movie, it was collaborative and specific at the same time, but it ends up being, an important scene and something, again, I wouldn't have been interested in it, wouldn't have worked writing it 12 years before.
Yeah,
we had to actually live it and get there, all of us, in our own way. And from an actor's point of view, that's Patricia's last day of shooting on the movie after all these years. So you can imagine she is saying goodbye, not to her fictional son, but she had said goodbye to her actual son, and she's saying goodbye to this crew and this movie experience, and she's saying goodbye to Olivia. So it was an emotional day, so we could always find that corollary as a performer, as a writer, everything. We're all at that point saying goodbye.
Well, thank you both very much.
Well, thank you. Thanks for being here, man. Really appreciate it.